In the late 15th century, when art was defined by balance, beauty, and devotion, a painter emerged who shattered every rule. His name was Hieronymous Bosch. To his neighbors in the Dutch town of 's-Hertogenbosch, he was just another local craftsman, but inside his mind whole worlds of temptation, punishment, and human folly boiled and fused into images the world had never seen before. Bosch was born sometime around 1450 in a Europe terrified of damnation. The Black Death had only recently swept through the continent. The Church ruled life and death. Heaven and hell weren't metaphors. They were destinations everyone feared or prayed for daily. Painters of his time showed saints, holy families, or careful portraits of noble patrons. Bosch painted something else entirely, an inner universe. He grew up in a family of painters trained in the traditional techniques of the Dutch school: oil glazing, detailed panels, luminous color. But from an early age, his imagination twisted those methods into something haunting. Instead of idealized faces, he filled his canvases with crowds of sinners, hybrid creatures, burning cities, and impossible landscapes. No one truly knows what Bosch looked like. We have only his signature, Hieronymous Bosch, scrawled on the corners of his paintings, and a few scattered documents describing him as a respected citizen, a member of the Brotherhood of Our Lady, a prestigious religious confraternity. That membership is important. It gave him access to theological texts, apocalyptic visions, and moral debates that shaped his art. Bosch wasn't mocking religion, he was dissecting it. Look at his most famous masterpiece, The Garden of Earthly Delights. 3 panels. Eden on the left, a dreamlike middle filled with pleasure and desire, and hell on the right. It's not just a warning against sin, it's a psychological map of the human condition. The left panel shows creation, perfection, Adam and Eve meeting under the watchful gaze of the Creator. The center overflows with naked figures, animals, and fruit, symbols of lust, greed, and curiosity. The right erupts into chaos, twisted instruments, burning cities, figures trapped inside their own desires. Art historians still argue what it means. Was Bosch preaching morality or exploring the nature of temptation itself? Some say he was illustrating sermons about human folly. Others think he was capturing the subconscious centuries before Freud, translating dreams and fears into visual form. Bosch's works weren't just bizarre for the sake of it. Each strange creature or object carried meaning. An owl peeking from a dark corner represented hidden sin. Berries symbolized fleeting pleasure. Musical instruments became tools of punishment, a warning that what once brought joy could turn into torment. His paintings were puzzles, sermons, and nightmares all at once. Unlike the serene Madonnas painted in Italy, Bosch's art confronted viewers with the chaos inside themselves. He painted humanity stripped of its mask of civility, our curiosity, lust, fear, and foolishness laid bare. His panels looked crowded and frantic because the human soul, he believed, was exactly that, restless and divided. He wasn't working in isolation. The late Middle Ages were obsessed with morality plays, illustrated manuscripts of hell, and visions of Judgment Day. But Bosch's imagination pushed those traditions to extremes. He turned moral allegory into something hallucinatory. In an age of plague and penance, he mirrored what people truly felt, that the world could tip into apocalypse at any moment. Bosch's contemporaries didn't quite know what to make of him. Some saw his works as warnings from a devout man. Others whispered he was mad or heretical. Yet his patrons were wealthy nobles and church leaders, people who recognized the genius in his visions. They collected his paintings not just for beauty, but for the shock of recognition, the uncomfortable truth that sin, chaos, and beauty coexist inside every human being. He rarely dated his works, and he never wrote about his own ideas. Everything we know about his mind comes from his images. And those images seem to whisper something universal, that morality isn't simple, that temptation and punishment are reflections of each other. When you look closely at the Hay-Wain triptych, another of his masterpieces, you see humanity chasing a cart of hay across the landscape. To Bosch's audience, hay meant vanity, worthless things people chase as if they matter. The cart is pulled by demons, watched by Christ above, and followed by humans of every class fighting for scraps. It's a metaphor for greed driving the world toward ruin. Even Bosch's smaller works, like The Temptation of St. Anthony, drip with symbolism. The saint kneels in prayer while grotesque creatures swarm around him, his faith surrounded by absurdity and corruption. Some historians read it as a vision of resistance, a lone human spirit holding firm in a world gone mad. Bosch died in 1516, the same year that the Protestant Reformation was about to fracture Europe. His art, filled with warnings and spiritual anxiety, feels like a prophecy of that coming storm. After his death, his paintings continued to circulate in royal collections, especially in Spain, where King Philip II, a deeply religious monarch, admired them. To him, Bosch wasn't a heretic. He was a moral visionary who saw the true face of sin. Centuries later, modern artists rediscovered him. The Surrealists, Salvador Dalí, Max Ernst, and others, saw Bosch as one of their own, a man who painted dreams long before psychology gave words to them. They called him the first Surrealist, a pioneer of the subconscious. But perhaps Bosch wasn't trying to paint dreams. Maybe he was painting the real world as he saw it, chaotic, uncertain, and filled with contradictions. To him, the line between the sacred and the profane wasn't fixed. It was something humans crossed every day. Standing before a Bosch painting today feels like staring into a mirror that reflects the timeless struggle inside us all. The greed, the fear, the search for redemption, they're not relics of the Middle Ages, they're our daily realities. Bosch's world was one of plague and superstition. Ours is one of technology and distraction. But the questions he asked remain the same. What drives us? What destroys us? And what does it mean to be human in a world that seems to have lost its balance? Hieronymus Bosch turned those questions into visions, not pretty ones, but honest ones. His genius lay not just in the paint, but in the courage to reveal what others refused to see, the raw theatre of the human soul. 500 years later, his paintings still unsettle, fascinate, and challenge us because they're not just about sin or salvation, they're about us. Bosch once said nothing, he left no words behind, but through his art, he whispered a message the centuries haven't been able to silence. The monsters aren't in hell. They live within us.